beautiful bastards.
How do you feel about the entertainment industry?
Ryan Reynolds.
Let's just talk about right now for a minute.
Welcome back, you beautiful bastards, to another week. Gerry, what are we talking about this week?
Well, this week changed a little bit. We are talking, I'm going to say generally speaking, about the show, but we were going to be talking to a guest who we're going to end up rescheduling because if you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, it's not always smooth.
It tries to be. We try to be. We try to be we try to plan like, I think right now we're a month out, maybe a month and a half out. But you have a lot of things. We've done interviews now that you guys haven't heard, and probably won't hear because we listen and we're like, yeah, that was crap.
Yeah.
And not due to us. It's just you don't know what you're gonna get with these people.
Yeah, it's interesting not having ever done this before because I don't know about you, Grizz, but I've never interviewed anybody before this show, right? Have you?
No, not in this sense.
No. So it's kind of it's a weird experience, and you don't really know what you're going to get into when someone steps into the chat room or the studio, whichever it may be. And we've had some real winners.
We've had some real winners. We've had some people that are just they're putting out the same thing that we've heard 10 million times, which if we don't want to hear it, why do you want to hear it?
Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth behind the scenes between me and Grizz. And a lot of it is, it's like, Gerry, what do you think of this person? And I look at whatever their topic is or their specialty, and I'm like, that sounds stupid. Why would I want to talk about that?
Yeah. And you also have to, I have to remind Gerry, we're not just talking about The Matrix every week.
Yes, actually, going forward, we are talking about The Matrix every week.
God, I'm going to blow my brains out.
But not to be disparaging about motivational speakers. I think they have their purpose and their place in life. But there are so many of them that want to be on a podcast. And what I find interesting about when people approach us, I feel like a lot of them, for one, don't see what the name of our show is. It's Beautiful Bastards.
They don't look at what we do either. That is, I think that we might have had one. And that might have been Brim. I think Brim was the only one that was like, I like this, let's do it. Yeah,
and the general consensus I run into, especially with the ones that we kind of, I guess, turn down, is they don't really know what they're asking from us. So their content's great. It's perfect for somebody. Not this show.
My favorite by far, just to give you guys a little bit, breaking the fourth wall. One of my favorite that was like, I want to be on your show. And we were like, what? Was a woman who was all about how you can bring science and arts and crafts into your child's life.
Yeah, listen, and being a dad, that's fantastic.
That's great. It doesn't fill an hour. And I don't know that it's really what we're talking about.
No, if you're listening to this show for consistent, solid parenting advice, you're doing it wrong.
The wrong show. But yeah, that would fucking crack me up. And finally I was like, yeah, it's just not going to work out.
No.
I tried to come up with something.
Yeah, so we actually have some stuff that we might still release because we're working on the Patreon, which it's an interesting thing because without actual patrons, it's hard to do a Patreon. I mean, maybe there's people that do it way better than us. I've never used one, so we're kind of learning as we go.
We'll have it, and it's coming, Don't worry. The problem is we don't want it, in the sense if you guys are paying us money, I don't want to give you the shit that we're not going to give to the general public. You know what I mean? If you guys really want to see the recordings that we've been like, ooh, let's not put that out there. We'll give them to you, but we want to give you something that's worth your while, worth your money to actually see. It's going to have like behind the scenes, which to us is awesome. We think you guys will enjoy that a lot. But some of our recordings were just like, yeah, that put me to sleep while I was talking.
Yeah, and maybe you guys know this, maybe you don't know this, but we're not actors. If we don't really care about what our guest is talking about, it turns into a shit show. You can tell. It's not good.
If we don't agree with who we're talking to, you can tell, especially on video.
And I'm cool with, for the most part, putting something out we don't agree with if it's a good show. But if it's like, if someone's telling me how like, I'm the biggest piece of shit because I have a podcast, and they spend an hour telling me that while I disagree. I don't think you guys want to hear that. For the most part, that hasn't really happened. But today we were going to have a guy on, who we're still going to have him on, but a lot of the people that we talk to are from all over the world. In this case, I think it was California, where the time zone is 4 hours away, right? 4? I'm not even good at time zones myself.
Yeah,
3 hours.
For those of you who don't know, Jerry's not allowed to schedule shit. All right.
Nope.
He can't.
I just show up.
Time zones. I have to tell him what he needs to do.
And we're finding that that's a common issue with a lot of guests.
Which I don't get. Do you not have a smartphone? I get it.
You know
like
what?
Australia, right? If we're going to the other end of the world, I get it because that's a different day, right? That's not like, oh, California's they're at 3, we're at 6. Okay, the same day. No, Australia literally is the next day.
Ironically enough, our guest that talked to us from Australia was the smoothest, or at least at the very top of the list.
Yeah, he was one.
We have another one coming up, right, from Australia?
We have a bunch. There's another one I saw today.
Awesome. But yeah, so we've been talking about the topic that we're going to kind of cover today as an episode we wanted to do. And when our guest had this issue today, we said, well, why not? You guys will get to know a little bit more about us, and we'll get to bullshit, which is what we do
all the time.
Anyway, let's get into that. Hi, Grizz.
Hi, Gerry.
Thanks for being on my show.
Beautiful day.
Thanks for being on my show. I really appreciate you being here.
No problem, Gerry. Anytime.
Now, before we get into what I wanted to bring up, you did not learn any lessons from our guests, did you?
What?
You flooded your basement without flood insurance.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. For people who are constant listeners, and we had George
Siegel
a few weeks ago. So for those of you who don't know, the Northeast is turned into the Northwest, and we get rain daily. Lots of it.
This year's out of control.
It's insane.
But what did George tell you? Do you remember the words he used?
George told me to get flood insurance, and then this Saturday we got like 6 inches of rain in one sitting, and it came in through my dog door. So I had to rip up my basement's carpet, and I'm going to end up remodeling my basement, which I didn't plan on doing monetarily or just in general yet.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
Fantastic advice from this show that he didn't take, and now you see what happens when you don't listen to us.
See, I didn't listen to my own shit. I'm an idiot. But
you got to listen to you.
Already knew that I'm an idiot.
That's true. It shows. It shows every episode.
It does. My brain doesn't work.
Now that we know you're dumb, it's just a little bit reinforced. I wanted to get your opinion on something. How do you feel about the entertainment industry as a whole?
I was waiting for you to ask me what my thoughts on Matrix 4 was. I'm not going to lie.
We're going to get into that.
As a whole entertainment industry?
Let's just talk about right now for a minute. I know where it's been, probably where it's going. I want to know, what do you think of the entertainment industry as you view it right now?
Right now, I think it's garbage. I mean, and you're talking like Hollywood, right? You're not talking like independent creators and things
well, there's
like that.
a lot of independent creators, but I think that is a different topic, but I think you can kind of wrap it all together.
Well, all right. So if you're splitting up, I think independent creators are putting out the best stuff because they're putting out something that they care about and something new-ish. Where if you're talking about Hollywood to me, for the most part, right? There are exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, Hollywood's been stuck in a rut now for a while. I feel like since maybe early 2000s, all you're getting is repeats or remakes. Everything is either they took a book and turned it into a movie, or they took a movie and they redid it, or like nothing is new, right? Everything is garbage.
Yeah, they only want existing intellectual property. And from a business standpoint, that's brilliant. Yeah. Because you know what? Everyone's going to buy that and everyone's going to watch that. I'm not going to lie. I watch pretty much everything Marvel puts out.
I don't anymore. I'm not a whore like you, Gerry.
Yes, I'm a whore for movies.
Like, I didn't watch Loki. I didn't watch WandaVision. And
I will tell you this.
What's her name?
Black Widow. I haven't seen the Black Widow movie yet, but when we're talking Marvel, when we're talking about Marvel, these little miniseries, the shows like WandaVision and Loki, are the best that they've done. Loki was amazing.
I mean, I started watching Loki, and I think that kind of idea where you're having like a series is really where everything's headed. I think we're getting away from the whole movie thing.
Well, it's a guaranteed audience, and that's the big thing. So if we go back, the reason that this came up, Grizz and I don't talk about this too much off air because he's a very angry person when it comes to this.
I'm not. Apparently, I am turning into an angry person. I've realized this.
You get angry all the time.
I think I'm not, but apparently I'm just pissing people off left and right because they're all a bunch of cunts.
Just chill out, Grizz. Chill out. That's the perfect thing to say to an angry person. Okay.
I didn't. Listen, I had to talk to customer service today, and I didn't yell at them. Okay.
Well, I'm proud of you. You're getting better. But I kind of got the idea to talk about this because you listened to a Quentin Tarantino interview recently, right?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
I listened to a lot of his interviews. He's one of my favorite directors.
He's a funky dude.
He's a strange bird, but that's what it takes to make what he makes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I love listening to the interview and listening to him, and I'm not a huge Quentin Tarantino movie fan. They're okay. One of my favorite movies is his, but in general, I'm just gonna say, yeah, they're worth a watch. But I couldn't tell you the last time I watched Kill Bill.
Is it Inglourious Bastards? Is that one of your favorites?
No.
What is it?
Django, dude.
Django's amazing. that's a good movie.
Granted, that's a remake too.
Django's a remake?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What? I didn't even know that.
I'll look up when the first Django was made, but keep on going.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I think he is he might not be the greatest director on earth, and he's kind of divisive. People really love his movies or they just hate them, and I can understand that. But I think he's the perfect guy to kind of use as a point of comparison for the industry, because for one, he changed it. Whether you like him or not, he changed the industry. But back when he kind of rolled into town, that was a time when basically an indie filmmaker could come into Hollywood. In which case, if you don't know his story, he was working at a movie rental store when he, I guess you could say, got his break, and that was
which is how they did it back then.
Yeah. So back then, you're getting a lot of movies that are original content. They're original ideas. And you can kind of argue now that there aren't any left. You're just kind of recycling and retelling a story. It's just all essentially the same. I can see where people are coming from.
The first one came out in 1966.
It's probably nowhere near as good. And I bet you all the white people at the end didn't die.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it also might be the fact that I love Jamie Foxx. He's great.
Oh, he's amazing.
Does an awesome job.
Yeah.
But so what your idea is that if you were in the shoes that Quentin Tarantino was in when he started movies back in the day, in the 90s, right. It was like 89, right? You're saying that if you were in that today, you wouldn't be able to do the same thing, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I think a lot of Hollywood is about that. It might not be as easy, but I still think it's all about networking. I mean, after our episode with Josh, it all comes down to just eking your way in there. I know for a fact Josh had to push his way in there. He just wedged his way in, and you slowly get your...
Well, now that we... You now have exposure to people in the industry. I know people in the industry who don't work directly in it now, or they do work in it in New York sometimes, but they all know somebody. And talking to them, it's mostly who you know. I'd say it's like 98% of the game.
Oh, yeah.
There's still room in that 2% for someone to come up with, like a blockbuster idea, sell it to Miramax or whoever. I don't know who's the big studio these days.
Doesn't really matter.
It could happen.
But you're still fighting the tide there, because
it's infinitely less likely.
Well, yeah, because are you coming up with a fresh idea?
I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah.
But back to Quentin, he came into the industry at a time where I think they were kind of probably already starting to go that way, where they were kind of rehashing all the ideas, because there's only so many genres and so many stories.
The 90s was great in my, if you talk to me about film, I love the 90s. The 90s was everything.
The 90s is film gold. There's shit tons of amazing movies from the 90s.
Oh, loved it. And none of them were realistic at all.
Yeah, but I think, obviously the graphics and the visuals were not as good.
Yeah, I'm just talking You
can say the same thing about 2010. I've seen some CGI from 2010 that makes me laugh when I watch it now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, listen, they're dealing with what they had for the times.
Right. But my point is, look at the stories that they were telling in 1995. What 1995 was? Well, we'll go with 93, Jurassic Park.
Yep. Okay.
It's not the first monster movie. Nowhere near it. But it was a really, really good story.
Oh, it was a great story. And I mean, for those of you not alive at that time, that was huge for its special effects of its time. Like,
and actually, those special effects hold up today.
Well, that's because he used animatronics.
Yeah.
Like he just and you're not seeing it as much today as you did back then. Like they played with more of the camera angles, so like you know what I mean.
Yes, it was more artistic and less formulaic. Like,
yeah, if you look at Star Wars when it first came out, it was all about, all right, we got to get camera angles, we got to build sets, things like that. Mm-hmm. And actually, Quentin talked about that in his interview, because he doesn't do CGI. Like, he just hates it. He doesn't want to do anything about it. And actually, I don't disagree with him. Like,
no,
when you have something that's just, I know CGIs have made leaps and bounds from what it was to the point where you can't tell a lot. But when it's crap, it's bad. Like, really bad.
Yeah, there's no way around it. Everything looks like it's made out of rubber. But we've reached a point now where, you ever see behind the scenes on the Marvel movies? We'll just keep picking on them for a while. Have you ever seen those?
That's fine. I haven't, but nowadays finding the behind the scenes is more difficult than it used to be. I mean, back in the day, you just popped in a DVD and you could watch them.
Well, Marvel,
now,
I think,
don't even know where
Marvel's like a special case for that, because if you go to Disney Plus, which everybody has that now.
That's true. Yep.
If you go to Disney Plus, there is a mini series of behind the scenes Marvel, so you get to watch. It's not necessarily the making of, but there's a lot of images, like you can see in an interview, people behind them or whatever. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I have seen a lot of behind the scenes. And if you take the finished cut of any given scene for any given Marvel movie, and you look at the raw footage before rendering, before editing, and everything like that, it's literally the actors in a green box.
Yeah.
And as good as the Marvel movies are, and as good as they are at following that formula, it almost makes it feel hollow compared to these really good movies from 20 plus years ago, because the actors were there, they were really reacting. Now, Chris Hemsworth, he has gotten real good at reacting to something that's not there. He plays Thor really well. But you're going to run into the situation now, which I think he is in the middle of this situation right now, where no matter what he's in, with few exceptions, hey, that's Thor. What's he doing in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, he's being typecast, but how do you, when you play a role of that magnitude, how are you not going to be? You know what I mean? And
well, yeah, Bruce Willis was typecast. He got out of it.
As far
because he had he was in Die Hard
John
movies. Well, not necessarily just him, but
he got out of it, but he didn't. Like, he plays the same character a lot, and I love Die Hard. Die Hard's great, and
actually, maybe I'm being unfair, because if I think back to all my favorite actors, I can't really say they're acting, because they just play themselves. Look at Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's a difference, right? If you get to me, you have actors, right? I can't remember who I was talking with this about. You have varying levels of actors, and you're gonna have, literally the whole alphabet. And when you get into the top tier, we'll say it's A, B, C, and D. D's still, they're great actors, but they're probably not the main. They're not your main cast. C's amazing actors, but they might be getting the main role. They might be a side role. B, that's main role and great actors, but then there's a level above that, like Tom Hanks. I mean, I put Leonardo DiCaprio in there. What the hell is Daniel Day-Lewis? Same thing.
Daniel Day-Lewis he's on another level.
He's batshit crazy in my mind, if you ask me.
That's probably why he's so good. But that actually brings me back to what I was getting at earlier with the industry the way it is now. Because we can see it now a little bit more for what it is, kind of dipping our toes in, You got these big name actors that they blow up big, and it's kind of always happened for the most part. But it's creating a bigger divide now. So you got a handful of A-list actors that you're going to see those guys and girls in everything. But there are so many good actors, even better than them, to be honest with you, that they're not going to be in these big movies like they would have been 30 years ago, because it's gone more in the direction of it's all about who you know and what your connections are.
Yeah, but I mean, so on that line of who you know, they may not care, and I'm sure they don't, but at least to me as a consumer, I can tell when someone's put there because of who they know. It doesn't it doesn't become what it could be. You know what I mean? It doesn't blow up.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays. Like, have you ever
actually what's that what are the DC movies there? Aquaman. What's that chick's name? The one who was married to Johnny Depp?
I have no clue who you're talking about.
Amber
DC
Heard.
movies to me are crap anyways. Who is it?
Yeah, well, they are. But Amber Heard. So I know you don't follow any of that for the most part, but Amber Heard is like, it's like just like a mannequin in the movie. That's how I view it. That's how I view her acting.
She has the same acting skills as me.
Yeah, it's like watching Kristen Stewart, but less glaring.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's like a perfect example. She probably got there because of who she knows, not because of her acting skills, because clearly they're not good.
Not to be a dick, but just popped in my head. What female actors or actresses would you put on that A-list peer? That A-list tier.
I think that kind of depends on the movie, and unfortunately for them, I don't think a lot of that's their fault.
I'm not saying it's a lot of.
There's a lot of bad writing in Hollywood, even that makes it into blockbuster movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really care for her, generally speaking. But I think that there have been times when Jennifer Lawrence is really good.
Yep. Yeah, I hear people don't like her.
I don't really know. I can't put my finger on it. I think it's just the roles that they had her play and the way they were written. I'm not a fan of them.
Yeah.
But there have been some things that she's in that are really good.
But
I like Emma Stone. I think Emma Stone is fantastic.
Emma Stone, what does she play?
She was in one of the Spider-Man movies.
No, still not ringing a bell.
Do you remember Ghost of Girlfriend's Past? It's a romantic comedy, so you might not have seen it.
No.
Okay.
Listen, we can make an entire series of episodes and movies that I have not watched. I've seen plenty.
How about La La Land? You seen that? Cruella. Anything.
Nope.
You've seen something, or at least a preview.
No, I'm sure I have, but I haven't seen it.
Easy A.
Nope. Yeah, I told you can make a. I don't watch
Zombieland.
too much TV. Yeah, I've
Double
seen
Tap. Zombieland Double Tap. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, you know what? I think she was in. Was she in Superbad?
I mean, that cast kind of rolled around for a while, but that was another thing I was going to bring up. I know you haven't watched all of it. But if you look at The Wire, fantastic TV series, which is where I think the good stuff is going, and I think that's where some of the greatest acting is going. That cast, I swear that cast moves together. They move from one thing to another, to another, to another.
To every cop drama.
Not necessarily cops, because they did things that weren't cops.
Was it crime?
No, not necessarily. I'm
not
trying to think of where they went around. I mean, some of it is. Definitely.
Yeah, I guess it's only crime if you're the victim, right, Chris?
If you take so perfect example. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up the guy's name, but you take in The Wire the guy who played Marlowe, who's you might not know him, but he's a gangster and he's pushing drugs and he's just a complete and utter thug, right? And
yeah, his name's Jamie Hector.
Jamie Hector, yeah, but he played J. Edgar in Bosch, which is 100% flip from what he was playing in friggin' The Wire. I mean, so that dude's a great actor, and you can see through his acting. You know what I mean? He didn't get typecast in one.
We can kind of see where the industry is going, and I think that even though you're not big on movies these days, because you're kind of stuck in the 90s, living the heyday.
I am and I'm not. I'll watch new stuff. I watched.
High school was so great.
I love them. You know, maybe it's me, right? So there was a time period. So the 90s were not realistic in movies at all. Like nothing was realistic. They didn't have to worry about aiming down a gun.
Well, it's a reflection of what people need at the times.
Yep.
Because the 90s was super boring, and that's why the movies were the opposite of that.
Sure. And I also think the 80s I don't remember well, but apparently the 80s were like PC as hell. So coming out of the PC as hell, they needed to be over the top, like bad.
Right.
Because people were so tired of it, which I feel like I don't know that we're coming out of it, but we're definitely in. Like,
it's all cyclical.
Right
so yeah, we are dealing with PC issues right now. But
so when we come out of it, I'm betting we're going to be over the top like crazy. Because I mean, you look at
those are the fun movies.
Well, yeah, but you look at like mid 2000s,
right?
Stuff started being like anal on top of, is it real? Is it not real? So you could have this immersion thing, and now you're at a point where you can't make anything. Like, dude, think about Tropic Thunder, amazing movie, hilarious movie. You could not make that nowadays. I don't
think even Robert Downey Jr. could get away with blackface now.
No, he said that himself. He's like, I couldn't do that nowadays. That's ridiculous. But they did it, and it was fucking amazing, and I love it. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, and I guess if you're gonna do blackface, that's about the only way you can get away with it.
Nothing about it is racist, right? Nothing.
No, it wasn't. It was actually making fun of racism.
Exactly, and it's awesome. They did it perfectly, but they couldn't do it nowadays because of how PC the culture is. I mean, you and I have run into it ourselves with how PC the culture is, and how much like what you can and cannot put out there. And to me, I hope, and I don't know that we are, I hope we're on this verge of coming out of it. Like, listen, I'm all for, we need to worry about like the rights of people, and I want equality for everyone because it doesn't make sense otherwise. But at the same token, we're worried about not letting people talk.
Well, right? we're obviously in the middle of it. I don't think it's reached its fever pitch yet. I hope obviously it's going to pass because everything comes and goes. So that got me thinking about you, Grizz. Ironically enough, thinking about Quentin Tarantino leads me directly to Grizz every time.
Weird, but I like it.
So we do a podcast. If you are listening to this, you may already know that.
Hopefully.
But this is the entertainment industry. It's not full-on Hollywood, but it's a creative endeavor. Yeah, it's a creative endeavor that we have to put a lot of thought and effort into. Sometimes they work better than others. Some episodes are good, some are not so good. It's a long and it's a hell of a process.
Yeah.
But you kind of seem out of place with it. I mean, not to the extent that you aren't good, but to the extent that I know you personally outside of the show. You don't like the entertainment industry. What the fuck are you doing here?
I wouldn't say that I don't like the entertainment industry. What am I doing here? I love having conversations. And I love finding out new things. Yeah. I was learning at the wrong time as a kid, right? And I think I plan to have conversations about this. I think a lot of people are. And to me, I want to hear stories. Like, if you meet with people, right? And this is what I love about podcasting, especially if you're like me. I had a hell of a commute for a long time in my life. When you meet with people, what conversations do you have them, right? And how many times, if you are a listener of podcasts, which if you're hearing us now, I imagine you are, how many times you listen to a podcast, you're like, oh man, he should have asked this question, or she should ask this question, or I wanted to ask this question, which I now understand doing it. Why they don't, because it's not like talking to a normal person. It's weird.
Right.
Your brain goes blank. You're thinking about too much shit. It's hard to talk on talking on this is completely different than talking on, just talking to a buddy in a at work,
well, with the exception of maybe this episode, because this is this is not planned. I wanted to cover this.
This is completely free, but even the free flowing stuff, man. Sometimes, like, how many times have we edited out my brain goes, or your brain goes. It just happens, or the person we're talking to, their brain goes. That's how it goes, because you're trying to just roll with it and think of a good idea that you need to be talking about, but. So to me, I always want to have conversations with people. I always wanted to hear what people have. Everyone has a story. I don't care who you are out there. You can think you have the most boring life ever. I guarantee there's something in there that people want to hear about. And so that's why I'm here. I truly enjoy doing this. Even if this never goes fucking anywhere, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy having the conversation.
And it's not at all what I expected it to be. Because I've always been a consumer of podcast content. I never really gave it a ton of thought.
Yep.
I have worked, with audio equipment on film sets and stuff like that. If you've listened to previous episodes, I mentioned it a couple of times. So I knew the logistics of what it was, but I didn't really understand kind of what it really is from the perspective of the person creating it.
No, not at all. I was the same way. But I mean, also, I think on what you're saying about me hating Hollywood, I don't know that I hate Hollywood. What I don't like fake people, right?
Right.
I don't like that person you meet and you're sitting there like, man, you're putting forward a front. You're showing me something, and we've come across them on this show.
Yeah.
And I walk away knowing in my heart of hearts, I'm a skeptic at best, and it's just, I know when I've come across someone who's just not selling me their true self, and that I don't like that. And there's a lot of that in Hollywood in my mind, and we've run into this on the show where there are things where I think you put forward right? Don't fear anything that you have, because if you're an honest person, you actually give a shit in this world and you have morals, you have nothing to fear, or you shouldn't have anything to fear. And we've wanted to put things out here that we, a lot of times we talk about, and in the end we might not, and we might regret it and whatever, or we might not regret it. It all depends. And that was one thing that he talked about, Quentin, that is. He said everything was PC as hell in the 80s, and when he finally put his stuff out there, he was like, nope, I'm putting out what you get, or what I want to put out there, and you're getting what you get. And I don't know if he caught a wave or if he started the wave, but it ain't just, everything flowed with it, and he put out shit that was just, so it was Reservoir Dogs, which to me doesn't seem that anti-PC, but I guess it was for the time.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about coming from something like, the most controversial movie from the 80s was a James Bond movie.
Yeah, which is not controversial at all. Now you're going into a bunch of guys robbed a bank and people dying and shit. And it's a little over the top. So, I understand it. And like I said, to me, I want to put out stuff like that to the extent of like, this is what we are. If you don't like it, don't fucking watch it. I don't think we're offending anyone. And if we are...
If we offended you, you needed it. No, I agree. I agree completely. I never really expected this from you, knowing you before the show.
Expected what?
That you were going to be willing to do something like this. And to be completely honest with the listeners, it was your idea. I had no interest in a podcast.
See, what's hilarious
before.
is you think it was my idea, and I think it was your idea.
Someone came up with this.
Someone fucking made us do a podcast. No, because we were lucky enough to have a work environment, which not many people have. It was an odd beast. And before, we had a work environment that always allowed us to have conversations, right? We were still doing work, but we always had to talk. Because you had to fill the time. There was a lot of times where we would be waiting for someone. And it was a big group of people, so you could have all sorts of conversation. And we always would say, fuck, let's do it. We're always having these type of conversations. We just need to do it on air. And finally we did it. But to me, you think I asked you when in term, you had all the stuff. We're like, no, fuck it, let's do it. I'm like, all right, screw it. I just think we're the type of personalities where it was always just, why not, right? Everyone's always telling themselves not to do something, where for us, it was just, yeah, let's do it. Why wouldn't we do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I've gathered that you've kind of always been that way. For me, it was a slow burn. Took me a while to get there. But
I don't know if I've always been that way.
It's funny you mentioned the whole work environment that we came from, where we actually met, because there were many reasons why I went to the company where we met. One of the reasons that it's not really talked about, and I haven't discussed it with many people. I think my wife knows because I talk to her about the shit that I do. One of the big factors that got me to go there was the schedule, how stable it was, and my ability to pursue things outside of work. Because I love stories. That's why I love talking to people. I love telling stories. I love listening to stories, just everything about it. And so the reason I went there was so I had time to invest in what amounts to getting involved in the entertainment industry. And that was why I ended up having the equipment to do a podcast. I didn't get it for a podcast. I got it for doing things like film work, voiceover work, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It just happened to work out really well, where we didn't have to spend a fortune to start talking to people on the internet, because there's kind of a barrier to entry there.
I got to give it to anyone, though, that wants to get into the entertainment industry nowadays. Like, you're taking a leap, because it's an interesting beast, Right. Like, for the rest of us, it's, you apply for the job, all right, you got the job, and there's a nervousness with that. There's an anxiety with that. All right, you got the job. Now you got to, the first few weeks can be brutal sometimes for some people. I mean, I watch people who it's like, they're literally talking themselves through keeping on the job when the job has no intentions of firing them or anything like that. So I understand the fear there. And then usually once you've been there for a couple months, you've found your niche and you're doing your thing, and it's easy going at that point, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, the entertainment industry, regardless of what point you're in, it's not like that.
It's all firing from the hip. It's never. There's no safety net. There's no nothing. Like,
yeah, I give a lot of credit, especially now that I've gotten involved, and I'm actually continuing to get more involved going forward in the industry in various ways. So I give a lot of credit to people that have done it for a long time and continue to do it, even against countless failures, especially in the culture that you're going to run into now, where they want something specific. They're not that open to something that's not what they want.
I'm also curious nowadays where, I don't know when it stopped, but, those years of Harvey Weinstein and stuff where it was like you could do things to get to edge in. Well, what is it now? Sexual favors are out the window.
Right. I think all that's going to do is, I hate to say it because it doesn't sound right, but I think for one, it's going to make it harder for women to get in because
it's fucked up.
Like if you're a woman, it is the truth. That's the truth of the industry. If you were a woman coming up from like the 70s to the right before the Me Too movement, you might be fantastic, but a lot of times you won't get the shot unless you were willing to go that far.
Well, what I hope you'll see, and I have zero clue, is you'll see more of people on like Broadway and things like that who are doing the plays and them come into the fold. It's like,
well, that's already been happening.
It has.
That's where Hugh Jackman came from.
Oh, is it really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he still does Broadway. He's a hell of a musical actor.
My kids love that whatever the hell that movie was, Greatest Showman. But like, who's that German dude from Django? Christopher Waltz. He's also in Inglourious Basterds. But that dude can fucking act, which actually makes me realize now that I'm looking up literally right in front of me the cast of Django. Like, dude, the whole cast.
Yeah, that's an amazing cast.
Oh my God.
But yeah, as bad as it is to say, for women particularly, I think it's gonna get better now that there's no other option.
I hope
because
so.
now they'll have to actually listen to them, look at their auditions and stuff, not just say, come into the back room and you'll get to be in this movie. They can't do that anymore.
Hopefully.
That's a totally separate issue with the industry.
Yeah, but it shows the flaws.
Yeah.
Right? So
we're now entering. I think there's a lot of different things evolving in the industry now, and it's kind of weird for me stepping into it at this juncture in history because it simultaneously makes it better and much, much harder.
It's gonna make it harder, but I think about it this way. I think to make it huge in Hollywood and to do something where you're gonna get noticed, I think you have to be a cut above and just take that wild ass risk and do it. And
that's the big thing. That's the big differentiator here, right?
Oh,
so you look at people that are coming up now. And again, Quentin's a good example of this.
Yeah, perfect.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of really good ideas that are going to make their idea could make a very good movie, show, podcast, whatever it may be. But what really sets them apart is how far they're willing to go.
Oh yeah, it takes a drive, and I think it's a grind. But to me, what I'm saying is like Quentin, he had a method or a vision that was different than the people around him, right?
Yeah.
So, and you cannot even say he has a series, like his movies are Quentin movies. No one can replicate
I actually classify his movies as their own genre, even though they're all in a separate genre themselves, or for the most part, a lot of them are. Quentin Tarantino movies are a genre. I think that if you want to make a movie like that, no matter what genre it is, you're making a Quentin type of movie.
Which you're probably going to fail at, right? But, so here's my thing.
Maybe that's possible, yeah.
And more than likely, I'm going to say you're going to. But so here's the other thing. When you were in the 90s, you knew probably a lot of directors' names, right? Because they made movies, right? And the movies they made were amazing. Steven Spielberg was one. Who else did you have? What the hell is his name? He did Titanic and he did James Cameron.
Oh, James Cameron, yeah.
Yep. Who's the guy who did? Who's the guy who always blows up shit? Who did?
Oh, that's Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. You knew there were going to be a lot of fucking explosions, right?
Yeah, you know
nowadays,
what you're getting with those directors.
Yep. Nowadays, name me someone. Nolan, maybe. And even then,
Denis
I wouldn't
Villeneuve.
say.
Well, I think he's French, so that's how he says his name. But in America, you would say Denis Villeneuve. So like he did Blade Runner 2049.
Okay, which
so there's still a few, but
yeah, but is it though? Like if you, I'm a bad example, but the general public probably doesn't know too many names. You have Chris Nolan, which realistically, what's his style? Dark.
It's Christopher Nolan. Wordy, excessive, and overthought, but still good. I'm not really a good example because I'm big into movies, so I know who a lot of these guys are. But most people you talk to don't know.
You should also know who, like right now, what directors are blowing up the scene. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know many. I couldn't tell you many that are still doing it.
What's going on right now is we're getting back to this formula that I mentioned. This Hollywood formula. Mm-hmm. They want to spend as little as possible, get the best product they can get, and make as much as they can make.
Yep.
So there's actually a lot of newer directors who, a lot of them are indie directors, a lot of them come from someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of directors nobody's ever heard of directing these big movies. I don't know what drives that. I mean, they've got to make the movies. So someone's got to do it.
I think it's cookie cutter, right? They just need someone to fucking do it, and they're just looking for whoever. But that's not... Yeah, all right, that might make you money. But I think you and I agree that greed is one of our biggest issues in the world right now.
Yeah, and everybody's beholden to stakeholders, which is problematic.
I think Hollywood's no exception. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to make a shit ton of money, which I think they've always been trying to make money. But there was a point where it was art, right? They were trying to make art, and I want us to get back to that. I think we've gotten away
the big
from
directors are still doing it. So like
who?
Quentin, James Cameron. I don't really like James Cameron's
what
movies.
Was the last thing James Cameron even did?
His big thing is Avatar, which I think was
that was a
technically
shit ton. That was a while ago, man.
Yeah, but he's making number 2, and he has plans for 3 and maybe 4.
Yeah, but that was... I mean, how many years have we heard that?
Yeah, well, how many years did you hear about Avatar?
Dude, Avatar was fucking 2009, man.
But yes, Hollywood, you're getting cookie cutter. They pump out the same basic thing all the time.
And that's...
I watch a lot of indie films. And I don't know how much you watch or how many you've seen, but if you go to YouTube,
not much,
because everything's on YouTube, there's a lot of indie content that is amazing, better than what's coming out of Hollywood by miles.
And so that's my thing. They're not even picking up the cues that they're fucking it up. They're just putting out the same bullshit, and it's...
Well, the problem is they're still making the money. They're making record numbers. Like I said, Marvel movies are fun to watch. I'm gonna watch every one that comes out.
They
for the most part.
To me, they're making those cookie cutter, and they're making those boring too. Like, dude, if you're younger than me, but when comic books were huge, which was even before me, but they were still there when I was a kid. Like, dude, they have so much storyline to go off of, and it's just what they're giving you is bleh. Dude, they could go so crazy with it. I mean, even X-Men. You look at X-Men. X-Men, I loved as a kid. I was huge. I did the comic books. I watched the TV show, and they could have gone nuts with that, and they didn't. And they actually, to me, I think they fucked up in the beginning by trying not to make it rated R when they didn't realize that the people who wanted to see that were older.
Yeah, if you never read a comic book, it's rated R. They're called graphic novels for a reason.
Oh, they're totally like, dude, Deadpool. I mean, although I got to give it, they did Deadpool right, but that was probably more Ryan Reynolds pushed that one.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But I think going forward, like even this show, it's constantly evolving. Yeah. And I like the direction it's going. We talk about stuff behind the scenes, like stuff we're going to change.
We want to give you guys something that we're proud to actually put out.
And sometimes I'm not entirely happy with an episode, but I am actually leaning harder into creating things. I don't know how you feel about it.
As far as? Just
even the show. It could be anything. I know you don't really have a lot of interest in anything outside the podcast, right?
Oh, as far as like getting more into Hollywood? No, I have zero desire to get into there. Like if I'm a person who's what is laid before me, I roll with. To me, there were points in my, like, I think bungee jumping is the dumbest fucking thing you could ever do, right? Because the deaths were so high when I would do it. And I still looked in, like, there was a point where I was in Korea, someone was like, hey, who wants to go bungee jumping? Sure, I'll go. Let's do it. Because it's there. Take the opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my life, it has served me great. There are so many things
so you're
that
a
I've
yes
done in
man.
my life. I wouldn't be a yes man. I think
That didn't
you
work
know
so
I'm
well.
not a yes.
That didn't work so good for Jim Carrey.
I'm pretty sure you know that I'm not a yes man. But
Yeah.
when the opportunity comes, like if there's an opportunity and it comes across my nose, sure, fuck, let's do it. And it served me so well in my life. Like I think I've led a very colorful life, and I enjoy every minute of it.
Well, it's nowhere near over. You're not even 40 yet.
And I think that's the way to live, right? Because there's so many things I would never have experienced if I wasn't just like, yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? That picture on the wall back there. My roommate, when I was in Japan, was like, do you want to go do a diving course? Sure, let's do it. Dude, hands down, one of the best things I've ever learned. Love every second of it. It's amazing. And that's the way I live my life, is you just, yeah, why not? What reason do I have to not do something?
Yeah, I can see that being pretty much the same thing for me, which is how we both ended up here. Because that's why I think we don't know whose idea it was, because we both talked about it back and forth.
But so if something like that came across me, I might think about it, because I think there's a lot of people trying to scheme people who are getting into the industry. Yeah. And I think so. I might think about that. But if they were like, hey, we want you for acting, I might be like, well, you're stupid. But sure, let's do it. How many times were you going to do this take? 37, 45, 62, whatever.
As many as it takes, Chris.
I'm also not beautiful.
I was just telling somebody recently that if you want to be a famous actor, you need one of two things. You need to be gorgeous, like out of this world, prettier than everybody else.
Yep.
Or you need to look fucking weird. Look at Steve Buscemi. He's not pretty.
You know what I was thinking? Yeah, but he's not in things nowadays.
Because he's old.
So, again, going back to the 90s, I was watching the Police Academy. Do you remember? I think it was Wildcat was his name. You know what I'm talking about? The dude who fucking... like, there's no way that dude would be in Hollywood nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Look him up and be like, oh, shit, yep, no, that ain't happening.
Well,
That was a comedian.
Look at a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s and stuff. Dudes are hideous.
Oh, absolutely.
But they were still in their movies. Because that was back when they were a little more lenient. Now, again, they're following this cookie cutter thing, which is why I like the idea of the indie industry, which is now getting bigger. Like everything, I'm sure it'll eventually get to the level of Hollywood, and it'll all cycle out again. But that's kind of what I've been...
one thing that keeps theaters alive.
Yeah, but that's what I've been getting involved in recently myself. I actually am doing on the weekend of July 31st. It's a 48-hour film festival. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
The way it works is it's Friday night at 7 p.m. is the start date, or the start time. And you get assigned the genre, a character, a line of dialogue, and a prop. All of those things have to be in. Besides that, do what you want with it. You have until that following the Sunday, so 2 days later, at 7 p.m. to put it in their hand.
Interesting. That's quick.
It is quick. Especially, well, I guess you...
How long
people
is that
do it all the time. 3 to 7 minutes.
Oh, that's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Yeah, but it's not that bad. But consider like some of the commercial stuff that I've done.
Oh yeah, it takes a while.
Let's say a 30-second clip, right? Like the stuff you see on YouTube that you can't skip anymore.
Yeah,
something like that.
Ads, they're ridiculous.
You're looking at around 4 hours of filming to get a 30-second clip.
Oh yeah, well look at what we do. We record usually for somewhere around 3 hours, and you guys see an hour.
So there's a lot of back end, but I've been leaning a lot into that, and actually, I never really did a lot of creative writing. I don't know what you did when you were younger, but I have
not writing.
I have been kind of honing that skill, and one thing that got me interested in that, for one, I started working on film sets, indie film sets. Just like anything else, it was fucking weird the first time I did it. It was kind of sketchy. The people were strange as hell. And now that I'm on that topic, camera crew is about the only people that seem normal to me. Everybody else seems so incredibly strange.
But that's
it
my
takes
point.
all kinds.
I think to make it anywhere in that and not be cookie cutter, you have to be fucking over the top and have some idea, right? Because I mean, again, back to the Quentin thing, he was talking about he had in his mind earlier in his life like what he wanted to make as Quentin films, and he stuck to it. And I think that's what you have to do.
And that's actually, I was going to bring him back up again in a second here, because it was a number of years ago now. Because I'm big into films, and I really always have been. So I watch a lot of director interviews. Because when I watch a movie, it's an emotional roller coaster for everybody. It's how it's designed, right? Mm-hmm. And most people just sit back and they go along for the ride. Mm-hmm. I'm in the seat, looking over the edge, looking at the track. Oh, how do the brakes work on this? How do we get up here? What's at the end of that? Yeah. I'm not just a passive.
You're the English teacher reading a poem.
Yeah. So excessive
what do they mean
analysis.
here? Nothing. They want to tell a fucking story, all right?
So yeah, like when I watch a movie, which I don't talk to my wife during movies anymore because it just pisses her off, but like I will notice the decision they made on how they framed a shot.
Yeah, okay. But that makes sense like that. Because you're in the world. Like, right? Yes. When you've worked in anything, you start to notice it more.
Yeah. And because especially for something like that, because you're like, well, why'd they decide to do that? Because it worked. Maybe you could use that later on. But getting back to what I was saying a second ago here, I listened to a lot of these interviews. And one thing I heard from Quentin Tarantino, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, was it doesn't really matter where you are in life. You know, in terms of being a creator or whatever you want to call it, if you want to do well, especially well like he did, I mean, not everybody's going to be Quentin Tarantino, but you can have some semblance of that success.
Yeah, you shouldn't try to be. You should be you.
Right. He said, this is what really stuck with me, make the movies you want to see that nobody's making.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's actually, so I do a lot of creative writing on the side. Most of the time it's garbage. But I changed the approach to that, right? Because you kind of have to follow a formula for writing anything that's going to be a visual media.
That's why I'm not good at it.
What changed for me was going with that thought process, because then it became almost like a natural thing. It's not like I'm trying to make this story. I'm just writing it. It comes natural because I know what I want to see. I know I'm not seeing it, which you hear me bitch about the shit coming out of Hollywood all the time. It's fucking garbage movies. Some of them are really good, but most of the time I watch it because that's what's there. I actually watched, what was that? I watched Nightcrawler the other day for the first time.
Yeah, you told me to watch that.
Amazing.
To me, like, I can't watch horror films. Not because I'm scared of it. They make me laugh, and I'm like, this is not scary.
You know what I mean? Most of them I feel the same way. But then you get stuff that comes out on rare occasions, like Insidious, which goes back to classic horror in a modern way and is really well done.
But like I told you about The Kingdom, right? Another Jamie Foxx movie. You know, the story of that movie is okay. I don't know who the director of that was, but in the end, there's a scene where like there's a dude about to get his head cut off. And the way they do that fucking scene, man, like it takes a lot to get my adrenaline pumping. My adrenaline was fucking pumping. You know what I mean? Like
that's how you know that even if it's just a scene, that's how you know it's well done. You feel it.
Right? And you watch Marvel nowadays. All right, they have a story that's already been fucking made, and they're just stamp that one.
Not getting all jazzed up though when you watch it for the most part.
No, fuck no, dude. I couldn't tell you the last movie that gave me a real like. Well, I can. I just did. But like of newer movies, nothing gets you going like that. And that's the thing. Like, it's all cookie cutter, and they're just sitting in their little safety zone, and that's what they want. Everyone's playing it safe, and I hate it.
That's an emotional connection that we're talking about here, which is what really drives the story. You have to be able to connect with it. That's everything. Even on the show, like a lot of the decisions that are made on this show about what we give you guys, it's got to be, for one, interesting because no one wants boring shit. But a lot of the decision about the interesting stuff that we choose when we get beyond the initial interest is, are people going to connect with this, basically, is what it comes down to. Because there's some stuff that's really interesting if you're a scholar. It's not emotionally charged.
Well, you take the two of us, we're both of us very mechanical thinking, almost engineer-like at times. And there have been stuff that we find fascinating, you guys would hate.
And I think that comes a lot from our background, because I used to be in college for engineering, and I was fine at it. I got straight A's, no problem. And I ended up taking one course that totally changed that direction. And that was a practical engineering course.
Marijuana 101? Oh, my bad.
No, Marijuana 101 is a totally different game. That didn't even change my course. That just made everything better.
Of course.
So a practical engineering class, which is essentially you get put in the role of an engineer. They give you assignments which are, this failed. This is the end result. Analyze it. Tell me why it failed and what should have happened instead. And that is the job of an average engineer, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to kill myself.
Then you've done engineering work as long as I've known you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, we used to do hands-on engineering testing.
Mm-hmm.
What I do now is more like engineering design.
Yep.
I don't like what I do, but again, this shift was for a multitude of reasons, one of which was flexible schedule. It got more flexible than it was before. Now I can get out of work almost whenever I want.
It would have been hard to do the show with our old schedule. It would have been more difficult.
So the old schedule was good for the other creative endeavors I was in because I had a set schedule then. I knew when I was going to get out, so I could set the stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not just I know when I get out of work. I can choose it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can choose to be here with you earlier, and that gives me more time to do more creative things. Oh, I always choose to be with you, Chris.
Again, that kind of goes back to that whole, like, anyone who's trying to get into the entertainment industry, like, hats off to you, because it's a scary endeavor. That
it is. It's even when you get in there, not necessarily make it, but once you get in and you're doing something on a consistent basis, the anxiety maybe, I would say it changes more so than goes away.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the anxiety of like you're too stressed out to do it, but with anything that you're creating, there's anxiety about it. Are people going to like it? Because they have to like it for you to continue to do it. Unless you just want to keep throwing your money away.
If we, there's a cost to it, but whatever. Even if you're not trying to make any money of it, you're just doing it because you enjoy it. Mm-hmm. You're still, if you have any sort of pride in what you're doing and any sorts of structure, you're going to hold to what you've told people you're going to put out, right? And you're just going to keep up with it. And there's always going to be hiccups along the way.
Now, for me personally, especially with the show or whatever it may be, I have discovered I love to create. I like to tell stories. I like to make content that people want to see and consume. Mm-hmm. This show is a labor of love because we don't really make money on this. Actually,
we haven't made any yet.
It costs us a lot every month, actually.
Yeah.
Then of course I start to think about people who want to do stuff like this and they're not in the position we are.
Yeah.
It's
agreed. Which
I feel bad for them because, once you do it, it's a special thing. Maybe I'm more emotionally charged than you are about it.
I am. I just don't show it.
Yeah, you're
I love what we do. I absolutely do. So it makes me think, right? Because I listen to podcasts, and before when I was listening, like there are guys I listen to that their audio is garbage, right? And it's to a point where you couldn't get past it, right?
Yeah.
And we started off I'm going to tell you right now, in my mind, our audio was garbage. But we knew
we had no idea really how to do a podcast. But you got to have the drive to do it.
Yeah, and that was the thing. You had to push through it. And I feel bad for those people who never realize those things and their audio is garbage and like they don't know any better or they don't look into it and make it any better. And so they could have a great idea to push themselves off the ground or whatever, but it never gets anywhere because of something they have no clue about.
Then there are a lot of artists too, which I've come across personally and just looking at their content. They're really good. Artistically, they're amazing, but they don't know how to separate that from what has to happen for people to find what you made.
What do you mean?
The logistics behind it, even just something as simple as distribution. They don't think about that until they can't figure out how to distribute it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at us. We suck at social media.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's like the big driver now. You got to be on social media to get that out there. And on that topic, we're actually going to be getting a TikTok, as reluctant as we are about that.
That's all Gerry.
Yeah, I don't like Gerry. Social media. I just don't like it. I think
it's just, to me, again, when you're getting into social media, a lot of it is fake again, right? And
that's what I take issue with. I don't like fake. And like I like movies that are obviously fake, but they're always something you can connect to.
And
I can't connect to someone being in Bangladesh hanging off the side of a building to look cool.
But I mean, you get into, if you guys are learning more about us, you're going to find out more about us throughout the years. And if you knew Gerry and us outside of this, there's nothing for us to post on social media. Like maybe tidbits here and there. Like I built a desk. You see this? I still have to put the desk on top of it. Like I might put up the video of me doing something with it, but that's it. Like there's not much for us to put on there.
No, and it just feels so normal because your life obviously becomes normalized. And like film sets are a perfect example. I see a lot of people on film sets that they do their selfies. They're like, oh, look, I'm on set, taking pictures of themselves to put up on social media. I don't think to do that, for one, because the sets are now normalized in my life. Mm-hmm. And for two, I can't necessarily fathom the idea of someone wanting to see that. Like, I don't, for me personally, I don't care about likes on, social media likes. Like when I make something, yes, I want someone to like it. I want them to consume it.
Yeah.
But that it's something that is so against the way that I view everything that I struggle so much.
Yeah, we're on
just to log into the social media.
Yeah, and you're going to be on TikTok. This will be fantastic. It's going to be the
from what I've heard, TikTok is easier. It's like
how is it? It's the same. It's hard.
No. I mean easier as in being consistent with it, because you probably have noticed, guys, we're not 100% consistent with our social media.
No, that's Gerry. He sucks. We should. You know what? You know what I have, Gerry? I have a. You know what grinds my gears, Gerry?
Tell me all about it.
Fucking YouTube. Now,
Why?
we don't get paid by YouTube, but that in the past year, so it's 2021 now, it's July, the fucking ads. Like
Oh, yeah.
I use YouTube for all sorts of things. Not just like I'm watching a show I like. If I'm looking up something, or I'm working on a vehicle and I need to find out where a bolt is because I don't work on them for a living anymore. The ads, man, they got ridiculous in the past year. They're pushing everyone to that stupid YouTube premium crap. It went from you'd have one ad in the beginning, maybe one in the middle, maybe one in the end, to now it's like, dude, one 10, 15-minute clip has now got maybe 12 ads in it. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. That right there is the relentless march of capitalism, slowly eroding the base of our civilization.
Gerry's
to the point where,
if you didn't know.
Oh, sorry, my communism was showing again. Yeah, I fucking hate those ads. But on the same note, I'm not willing to pay to get them to go away.
No, neither am I.
Every time that pops up, I say, "Fuck you, YouTube. I'm not paying you."
I think it's just Google. The fact that Google took it over. You know what I mean? Google took it over a while ago, but they were waiting to make their change. Question is another platform going to come up and take its place, or is it the norm? I think YouTube's too big.
Well, that's pretty much it. We can end right on that.
Thank you again for listening to Beautiful Bastards Podcast. Please take a few minutes to give us a rating on iTunes. It's a major part of what keeps this camera rolling. And it helps us keep the lights on so we can bring you new content. Remember, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, our website, anywhere else you stream your content from. If you enjoy the show, you can find all of our links at linktree/beautifulbastards. Or you can check out our website, beautifulbastardspodcast.com. And now YouTube. Smash the like and subscribe. It helps. Something. You sit on a throne of lies.
The entertainment industry is a reflection of the society we live in. Go make something.